Ha! You thought that the Casablanca episode was the last episode of the year. I mean, the fact that it was posted on New Year's Eve, it makes you think it's the last episode of the year? Okay, you're right, it is the last episode. This isn't an episode. This is a Minisode. This is the last Minisode of 2023. Which makes it sound like there was a lot, but this is only the second one, so yeah. Anyway, I decided to do a top 20 films of 2023. I posted this on my personal Facebook, and then on Twitter as 2 tweets, and then on Threads as one thread, because Threads has a longer character count than Twitter. So, yeah, I've posted it everywhere, but I wanted to do it on here as well. So, yeah, with me going to see movies, I never really paid attention to how many I had been seeing. And then halfway through the year, I discovered Letterboxd, which I had heard of, but never really paid attention to. I'm like, oh, it's just another app for movies. It's like, I thought it was just like another like IMDb or something. But then somebody was like, oh, you can make like movie lists, and they like explained to me like what it was, and I was like, oh, well, let me look into that. And I, using the year in film pages on Wikipedia, I literally went through and made a list for every movie I've ever seen in theaters. Actually, let me sort this by title and make it easier. It's currently set to uploaded and updated. Listening, there we go. So I have movies I've seen theatrically 1990s. There were 13 films. Movies I've seen theatrically 2000, 10 films. 2001, 10 films. 2002, 6 films. 2004, 2005, 6 films. 2006 to 2008, 8 films. 2009, 6 films. 2010 to 2011, 7 films. 2012, 5 films. 2013, 2014, 6 films. 2015 to 2018, 10 films. It's a very slow time. 2019, this was my highest movie count until this year. 14 films. 2020 and 2021, 5 films. I didn't go during that time for some reason. Then in 2022, it was 13 films, which is almost tied 2019. But then I discovered AMC A-List, which lets you see up to 3 movies a month. 3 movies a week for free. For free with the subscription. But, okay, so, like, I'll tell people, it's $25 a month, and people will freak out, like, that's too much. But here in San Francisco, movie tickets are, like, $22 for a single adult ticket. So, as long as I see more than 1 movie a month, it basically pays for itself, and I see a lot more than 2 movies a month. In fact, for the year 2023, I saw a record, for me, a personal record, 51 films. I was always watching films, and I saw so many. Every year, I do a top 10 films list that I saw. Well, every year since, I think, 2019, because that's, no. Most years, apparently, because I haven't... Oh, no, in 2020 and 2021, I counted streaming films, because there was a lot of films that exclusively released in streaming. And so, like, I was counted for a while, when I wasn't watching a lot theatrically, I was including, like, Netflix original, like Hulu, or streaming, or exclusives. But, as of last year, I'm exclusively talking about theatrical releases, and I had plenty to go from this year. I've always done top 10 films, but since I saw 51 films, I decided to up it to 20. There was a bunch of movies I wanted to include, and I got to 10. I'm like, but I wanted to include, and so I was like, you know what? Let's just keep going. The way I do these lists is I always start at number 1. Like, what's my favorite movie that I saw this year, and then I work backwards. And so, like, when I got to 10, I was like, no, I want to keep going. And when I got to 20, I was like, there's a couple more I want to add, but I think that's a good stopping point. So I thought I would do a minisode on my movie podcast and talk about my top films of 2023. My top 20 films. Number 20, Priscilla. It is a film about the life of Priscilla Presley, who was the wife of, ex-wife, because they divorced before he died, of Elvis Presley. And because, like, last year, in 2022, there was a movie called Elvis that told his story, but it glossed over her and their story, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It's like, oh, it's so what? It doesn't tell, like, the love story. But she was 14 when they met and fell in love and all that. So, yeah, like, and he was very abusive to her. And Priscilla, the film, really shows that. Like, it starts off like, oh, they're kind of a happy-ish couple. But then, like, he starts telling her, like, oh, I don't like that color on you. Take it back. And she's like, but I like this dress. And he's like, I don't like it. It doesn't match your eyes or something. And he's like, take it back. I don't like it. I want you wearing this. I want your hair like this. And she's like, but I don't want... Nope. You're going to be seen with me. You're going to look like this. I'm like, oh. And I think it's a really good film. And... Jumping to a very different genre at number 19, we get Saw X. I consider myself a fan of the Saw films, but I only really like the first 3, and then after that, I was watching out of habit. It's like, maybe this one will be good. Maybe Saw 7 will be good. And, like, they're not bad. They're just never as good as those first 3. And then they announced Jigsaw, and it's like, oh, how is he going to come back? And spoilers if you haven't seen it, it's not a sequel. It's a sequel prequel. Because even, like, the detectives were like, John Kramer's dead. How is he doing this? And then, like, the plot twist is, oh, we're following an old case. This happened 20 years ago or something. And I was like, oh, that's just kind of, it's a letdown. And then Spiral, I know a lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. I hope they make a sequel to that, because, like, the cliffhanger, it was like a cliffhanger twist end. It's like, oh, the guy got away, so now we're gonna get more sequels. Because I love this story, because, like, it's in the world of Saw, but without, like, all the connections. It's a copycat in the world of Saw. Like, they know about Jigsaw and they know about that, but this isn't an apprentice, or it's not connected to the main series at all. So it's its own unique story in that world, and I love it. It's like, without all, like, the burden of that story, start a new storyline. I love that. And then everyone hated it, and so we're probably not getting a sequel. But what's crazy in my mind is, okay, Saw 7 was the last of the main ones, the annual releases. So that's Saw 3D, Saw 7, and then Jigsaw would be Saw 8. And then Spiral came out, but that's a spin-off. And then the next Saw was Saw X, which they say is Saw 10, and then they've announced Saw 11. So is Spiral a spin-off? Because otherwise, Saw 9 is called Saw X, and Saw 10 is Saw 11. That's something I brought that up with some of my friends, my Saw fan friends, and they were like, "You're overthinking it," and I'm like, "Are you sure?" I'm only on 19. I'm making this a full-length episode at this point. Number 18. It's all true. Most people, I'm guaranteeing. Let's say 1,000 people listen to this episode. I guarantee 99% of them have never heard of this, because it's the only people at my screening where I'll get to that. I'm a huge fan. Her name's Melinda Kathleen Reese, and she started out as a YouTuber. She was making funny videos. Google Translates things, and then like she started making her own like original music. She's really good, and she made a movie, and it had a very limited release, and I watched it. I went to theaters and saw it, and there's a love interest. There's she in the movie, there's a girl that she falls in love with, and I don't know if it's her real life girlfriend or if it's just an actor playing her girlfriend, but when the screening I went to, there was a family, like I was sitting at the very top, and there was a family kind of halfway through, and then like as we're waiting for the movie to start, this this lady got up and she walked up to me and she was like, do you know what this movie is? And I was like, yeah, I'm just getting ready to explain it to her. Like, I don't know if you know what this is, but I'm a huge fan, and Melinda is a YouTuber. I was gonna like explain all that, and she goes, oh, the girl that plays the love interest is our person. And I was like, what? It's like, what? You're the family of the girl in this movie? Yeah. Like, oh wow, that literally never happens. Imagine watching like the Hunger Games and be like, Jennifer Lawrence is our cousin or something, or like our daughter. It's like that just doesn't happen, and that is insane. And like what sucked is like, because it's not that well known, I posted about it and people are like, cool, because like, nobody knows who this person is. I was like, it's cool to me. Okay, number 17. I'm just going to skip over it because so much has been said, and I did an episode on it. Oppenheimer. Number 16, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I went and saw it with someone I consider a sibling. I always call them my little sibling, and I said it so much that people were like, oh, I didn't know your sister was... No, we're like siblings, but I had no interest in watching that because I didn't like the first Puss in Boots, and so I was like, hey, let's go see a movie, and they were like, okay. And I was like, what do you want to watch? And they were like, Puss in Boots. And I was like, okay, I'm only watching this because you want to watch it. And I ended up loving it. And so I was like, I'm glad you had me watch this, because I wouldn't have watched it otherwise. Number 15, Five Nights at Freddy's. There is one thing I want to talk about with that movie that I've never seen anyone else talk about. I'm a huge fan of 3C Films. He's a YouTuber. He does movies. He talks about movies and like movie news. He's like the main movie YouTuber that I watch, and he's like really good. And he's talking about this movie a lot. He's a big fan of like the Scream series, and he's talked about Stu Macher and like Matthew Lillard, and he's always talking about this movie, and he's like talking about like that connection. Like, oh, it's good to see Matthew Lillard in a horror film again. And I'm shocked he never mentioned this in his review. Spoiler for Five Nights at Freddy's. There's a scene at the end when he's in the bunny suit and he has a knife and he stabs somebody, and when he pulls the knife out, it's bloody, and like Stu Macher, his character in Scream, he grabs the blade and wipes it off with his glove in like a swipe, like a swift motion, like he does as Ghostface. It's an homage to that. It's clearly that. There's no other reason for them to have done that. And I noticed that in theaters, and I was waiting for somebody to say it in like reviews, or like in like the new Rockstar video, or like in 3C Films. Nobody mentioned it, and it's annoying. It's like, am I the only one that noticed that? Number 14 is be random. This would be random. When I tell people I'm a huge fan of this series, they look at me like, really? Trolls band together. I didn't. Like, you remember how I said I wasn't going to watch Puss in Boots, and unless my little sibling, if they hadn't said anything, I wasn't going to watch it. I had never watched the first Trolls until 2019. A really good friend of mine said it's her favorite movie, and I was like, really? Trolls is your favorite movie? And she was like, yes. And she was talking about how like it's emotional and it like has like good songs and it's like has like emotional moments and it talks about like mental health. And I was like, Trolls? So I watched it and they did like a really good representation of like depression, and I was like, that was really intense. And then I saw Trolls 2 when it came out. It was one of those streaming exclusives during the pandemic, and I love that one too. This one was, I think, it's my favorite of the series. It really shows trauma, but like not in your face. It isn't like this is trauma. They don't even name it. They just show it, which is for a kids movie, for Trolls 3, for them to get like kind of intense. Like there's a scene where there's a character who's shown even in the trailer. She's like super happy and bubbly. She's basically Pinkie Pie from My Little Pony, and it's revealed, it's kind of implied and then like shown that she's masking deep family trauma from her childhood, and when it starts to like come out that she's traumatized, she's like, nope, let's not talk about this, let's stay happy. And then like all the other characters like, are you okay? She's like, nope, gotta be happy. And I'm like, oh, this is really good for a kids movie to address this. Like, this is really good. But then other people are like, it's just another stupid kids movie. I'm like, you shut your mouth. Number 13, I put Teenager Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Nobody caught that. I had a few people comment on the Facebook post of this. Not a single person commented on the fact I said Teenager Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I like it. There's some people that were upset that this is not the Ninja Turtles. They reimagined them, and yeah, that's what they do. Every time they do a new Ninja Turtles, they reimagined it. Imagine if, we're like 15 different Ninja Turtles in, and they're still doing the 90s Ninja Turtles. I'm glad they reimagine it, and I love this version. I have seen some reimaginings of the Ninja Turtles, and I'm like, no. So this one was really good, and I like at the end they kind of changed like it starts off as the Ninja Turtles we know and love, and at the end they change the dynamics to the point where like in a sequel they can start off and it's basically a brand new original story featuring the Turtles that we've never seen them before, and I can't wait if they do it. I don't know if they've announced a sequel. Number 12, Wish, which will be controversial. I know a lot of people hate that movie. They're like, is this another typical Disney movie? Some people say that the princess in that is problematic. And I kept hearing people say, oh, she's problematic. She's so problematic. And so I'm like, I finally was like, why is it problematic? She's quirky. Meh. It's like, all the Disney princesses are quirky. Okay, how is that problematic? Like, would you rather her be a damsel in distress again? Like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and all them having to be rescued? I don't know, people like to complain. And then they say, oh, the movie's garbage, it's unoriginal, and it's for like little preschoolers. It's I don't want to say a mature story, but like, I actually had a friend ask me which movie she should take her 5-year-old to, Trolls or Wish. And I said Trolls. Like, don't take him to Wish. And she was like, why not? And I was like, it's really good, but I don't think it's a 5-year-old story. Like, if he was like 11 or 12, I would say Wish. But take him to see Trolls, and I don't know if she did, but yeah, Wish is a really good story, and people just like to hate on it. People just like to hate. Number 11, Super Mario Brothers movie. there's really not much I can say on this that hasn't been said. It's pretty much a perfect video game movie adaptation. I mean, considering it was Illumination that made it, I think we all thought the same thing. Like, oh, they're gonna like do like pop culture jokes and try to do Minions stuff. Like the Toads are going to be the new Minions, and yeah, it was really good. It was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be, but then like I think they wanted to avoid all of like the cringy stuff, so like it was just straight to the point, to the story of the story. There was no like, one of the problems with it though is that like, because it was so fast paced and was just so like straight to the point, there was very little time to breathe. The only time in the movie there was really like, let's slow down and take the scene in, was that scene where they're like at the tree and like the field of fire flowers, where they actually stop for a minute and she's like, I don't know, I just kind of showed up here. It's like, whoa, and then they move on. I'm like, wait, no, just talk about that. That's a big change of the story. Hopefully they'll go into that more in any possible sequels. Jack Black said he doesn't have any idea if there's going to be a sequel. He hasn't been talked to about a sequel, but his character was defeated. His character is in a bottle. His character is set to the side for future sequels, which I hope they do like other villains, because Bowser's not the only villain in Mario. Anyway. Number 10. This is another one that people were like really confused about. I'm a huge fan of this series. My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. And when they announced the third one, I was like, I'm going to go see it. I rewatched the first two, like, right before I went and saw it. It's hard to believe, it feels like, we know that family, we know those characters, and we love them, and it's hard to believe it's only the third movie. It's like, it feels like, oh, this is My Big Fat Greek Wedding 12, because we, like, grew up with them, and yeah, it's, Number 9, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Again, there's not much I can say that hasn't already been said. I just really loved it, and I cannot wait for the next one. I thought there's no way they can top the first one, Into the Spider-Verse, and then they did. Number 8, Jesus Revolution, which that one was really good. I wasn't gonna go see it, but then I had people tell me that it was really good. It was It was a biopic, which usually when it's like, even though like I'm a Christian and they have Christian biopics, they've been doing them a lot lately, and some of them are like, okay, this is not that great. But then like this one was like really good, and yeah, I did like a whole post about it on Facebook, and I could like literally double the length of this quote unquote minisode. That's longer than most regular episodes already. But I won't do that. Number 7, again, I won't talk too much about it because I did an episode on Barbie. Number 6, Creed 3. I love Rocky. I'm a huge fan of Rocky. And when they announced they were going to do Creed, I got excited. And I just thought it was like a one-off. And now we're at Creed 3. And there are no bad Rocky movies. Even like people say, oh, Rocky 5 is awful because there was no boxing. Okay, so the thing with Rocky, and I think I said it, and I had a mini-sode on The Digressor talking about Rocky. The thing with Rocky is people are like, oh, it's a movie about it's a movie about boxing. It's a series about boxing. It's like, technically, but it's not about boxing. It's about a boxer. And so in Rocky 5, when there's no boxing, the film starts with them losing everything and then moving back to Philadelphia and having to like rebuild their life. And then they find Tommy Gunn, and like he's like, oh, I'm going to train him. I'm going to be a trainer, and then it turns into a street fight at the end, and people are like, "It's movie's stupid. There's not even like a big villain. Like how they couldn't top the Ivan Drago." I was like, "That's not the point. Trying to top the last one. It's telling his story." And so like they did Rocky Balboa, and I liked getting like an update on his story, but I didn't like seeing a 60-year-old guy get the crap beat out of him. So, like, I'm glad they went this route. Like, I wanted more of his story, but I didn't want to see him get beat up again. So, when they were like, we're going to do a spin-off series, I'm like, oh, yes, do that. And then I saw Creed in Creed 2 and now Creed 3 in theaters. And if they do a Creed 4, I'm going to go watch that too. I'm a huge fan. Number 5, Napoleon. That actually just came out recently, and I thought it was going to be like a super serious historical drama, especially since it's Ridley Scott, and it was a lot funnier than you would think. It was really good. It was very long, and there were people complaining that it focused more on, but it had a lot of emphasis on the queen that he married. Like he married her and she became a queen, but then they got divorced because she couldn't bear children. Well, she couldn't bear a son, at least, or kids at all. She didn't have any kids, and so like he had to get a divorce because of that. But then like he loved her. It wasn't just like, oh, I only wanted you for the kids, but he actually loved her. So he would go and like see her, and so the film put a lot of emphasis on her, and there were a lot of incels online saying, this movie's so woke, it's focused on her. Like, well, the thing is that Napoleon was focused on her. So, to tell his story accurately, you've got to tell her story. So, I liked it. Number 4, Godzilla -1. That one, I wouldn't say I'm like a huge Godzilla fan. I like it. I've seen several of the Toho films, and I've seen every American Godzilla film, the '98 one. I saw that one in theaters, and then I've seen all of, actually, now that I think about it, I've seen all of the American Godzilla films in theaters, including I think it was 2014 Godzilla, and then Godzilla King of the Monsters, I believe it was called. Which I forget about that one. Like, that one had more, like, I remember that one more than 2014 Godzilla, but like, I also forget it exists, if that makes sense. And then like, yeah. But Godzilla -1 is, I heard people saying, it's one of the best Godzilla movies ever made, and they're wrong. They are so wrong. It is not one of the best Godzilla movies ever made. In my opinion, it is the best Godzilla movie ever made. Oh, man. Usually with Godzilla movies, there's the human story. But, like, it feels like they were improvising the human story as they went along. Because there's, like, no stakes. You don't care about them. It's like, what was Matthew Broderick's character's name in the 1998 Godzilla film? Without looking it up, can you tell me what his name was? No. Nobody can. I've asked people who are like, oh, I'm a huge Godzilla fan. What's Matthew Broderick's character's name? Matthew Broderick? I don't know. Exactly. You don't care about him. You don't care about anybody in these Godzilla films. Name a single character. Human character. What's Millie Bobby Brown's character in Godzilla vs. Kong? What's her name? It just came out a couple years ago. What's her name? Nobody can say it without looking it up. You don't care about these characters' names because they never have any impact. Like, it's like they're making it up as they go along, and it's kind of funny, but like also kind of sad because like you're watching this movie and you kind of need to have Uh, yeah, yeah, but like this one, like the main focus is the human characters, um, and one of the characters, like her name is, I think it's Noriko. They kept saying it, and there was the subtitles, and it kept popping up, and I was like, Noriko, Noriko. And then like the main character, his name was like Koichi, Kochi. I don't. Okay, so like I don't. I think because like to me those aren't common names. In Japan, they're probably like it's like, oh, it's Sally and Bobby or something. I don't know. They're not common names to me. I've never heard them before. So like if it was that same story, but like English names, I'd be like, oh yeah, their name was this. I remember enough to get close to guessing the names. Actually, hang on. I am going to look it up. I'm actually going to look that up. Let's see. Godzilla. Oh, there it is. Yeah, scroll down. Cast. I was close. Wait, what did I say? Noriko, Oishi, and then Koichi. I'm not going to pronounce the last name. I was pretty close. I wasn't right, but I wasn't right. No. My point is, you care enough about the characters in this movie that I actually forgot at points that it was a Godzilla film. Which I know sounds bad, but like, I legitimately cared about these characters. I didn't want anything bad to happen to them. And I will say, it's the first time I've ever seen that Godzilla film where I bawled my eyes out. I was literally in the theater, and I wasn't the only one. Because I was like, leaving the screen. I was like, oh, this is really good. I was like, wiping my eyes. And I saw other people doing the same. They're like, I never thought I'd cry watching Godzilla. And I was like, right? So, yeah, like, Godzilla -1 is number 4 on this list. I forgot I was reading a list. I'm like, why am I telling this? And the top 3, number 3, The Color Purple. It came out just a few days ago on Christmas Day, and I saw the original, and I was like, there is no way they're going to top that. And in my opinion, they did. It was really good. Like I liked the original, and I really liked it. Like I was like, yeah. And then this one, I actually think they did a better job. They didn't advertise it as a musical, and I didn't know that until I was in there. I don't mind. I like musicals. But when I know I'm going to go see a musical, I like listening to the soundtrack first. So otherwise it's like, oh, a bunch of random songs I don't know. I feel a little uncomfortable when there's like a song and I'm like, I don't know the lyrics. If it's like 1 or 2, it's like, okay, this is cool. But it's like an entire movie of songs. I'm like, I don't know any of these words. So I like listening to the soundtrack before I go see a musical. So like maybe I can't sing along, but at least I can like follow along. It's like, oh, yeah, this song, yeah, I like this song. But I really did like it. I didn't know Fantasia was going to be in it, and I didn't really know what she looked like. But then like she started singing, I was like, oh, that's Fantasia. She has a very distinct voice. And it's like sings to your soul. It's like it's very unmistakable, and I loved it. And on top of that, Halle Bailey was in it, and she's also in number 2, The Little Mermaid. I did not do that on purpose. I honestly didn't even notice that until just now, while I was reading this, that number 3 and number 2 have Halle Bailey. She was in 2 movies this year, and both of them were in my top 3. But yeah, I know a lot of people didn't like that. Most people just blanket hate all the Disney remakes, and I like most of them. I love a few of them. This one, I liked it so much. I saw it 3 times in theaters. I actually did a review on this one. I covered this one in an episode. I'm not going to touch on it too much. And my number 1 film of 2023, Killers of the Flower Moon. It was really good. I had no idea what the story was. My mom told me afterwards. I told her that I saw it, and she said she read the book and didn't know it was a movie. And I said, well, that's funny, because I saw the movie, I didn't know it was a book. And so, yeah. The story was, like, really intense. Well, I don't want to say, like, I didn't go in completely blind. Like, when I realized it was a true story, I thought it was just like, oh, it's just a random story. And then I realized in the trailer it said, based on a true American story. And I'm like, oh, so it's really happened. And then I looked up a document, I think it was like a CBS Sunday Morning video on YouTube that talked about it. And I got like a very brief, like 10-minute overview of the story. And so, like, I had a general idea, like, what happened. And so, like, when like, something... They were starting to set up, like, oh, the house is, like... They're going to put, like, dynamite around the house. I'm like, oh, ooh, I know what's going to happen here. And so, I wasn't completely confused. I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. My only real complaint with it is they made Leonardo DiCaprio's character... My only real complaint with the movie is they tried to make Leonardo DiCaprio's character, like, sympathetic. And they're, like, kind of left it ambiguous. Like, does he still love her? Did he actually ever love her? And they made it seem like, oh, it's a historical love story. And it was, whatever. But if you look at the actual, like, after I saw the movie, I actually looked more into it. And I was like, I watched, like, full-length documentaries and stuff. There is no way he loved her. He wasn't, like, caught in it. I think he was, like, one of the leaders of it. It was going to end with her. And, like, she was, like, the goal or whatever. And he was not the good guy. And the movie made it seem like, oh, he's sympathetic. He was, like... He was worried about them, and he loved her. But the movie even shows him poisoning her. So, like, I didn't like that aspect of it, but, like, I like the fact that they're covering, like, Hollywood is covering these stories now. Like, for the longest time, all these stories about, like, the indigenous people and like, all these... They're basically covered up stories. They're now, like, seeing the light of day. Like, it's kind of weird that it's taking, like, Hollywood and, like, comic book movies to shine light on, quote unquote, hidden parts of history. Like, Watch Dogs, Watchmen, the series, introducing people to the Tulsa riots, the massacre, and it's like, when that show premiered, people are like, what is this? What's going on? What's this historical context? And now, because of Watchmen, now there's, like Tulsa documentaries. I think they're making a movie, and there's, like, a podcast about it, and nobody was talking about... I've never heard of it until Watchmen did it. It's funny that it took a Watchmen series to do that, to, like, introduce people to this concept of something that happened a long time ago. Anyway, for a minisode, this, even before I do any editing, this is already longer than a majority of my Casablanca episodes. And so, yeah. It's kind of like in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the little brother is the big giant metal one, and everyone's like, Full Metal Alchemist, and then, like, the actual Full Metal Alchemist is like, it's me! It's like, but this one's made out of metal. And it's like, that's my little brother. He's bigger than you. Yeah, it's like the Minisode is bigger than the full episodes. Anyway, this is the last episode or Minisode or any upload on this podcast for the rest of the year, which honestly isn't saying anything because it's New Year's Eve. But I'm not going to post again until maybe June or July. I have a general rough idea. I've got to like map it out. I know what I want to do. I want to like end on like, I just got to map it out. I know what I want to do. I just got to map it out first. But anyway, I wanted to do, I was going to like really quick at the end of the Casablanca episode, be like, anyway, my top list of this, and then like do it in like 30 seconds, just like read them off. But I was like, you know what? I could just do it as a minisode. And that would be more fun, because then I can actually just talk about the movies instead of just list them. But anyway, I am going to end this quote-unquote minisode here. And Happy New Year, I guess, hopefully. When every year since 2020, New Year's Eve 2020, when when it strikes midnight, I shout Jumanji, so we're going to keep that tradition going.